Welcome. It's Father Time. Here we are. We are over the North Atlantic. I did a flight with no VATSIM up to the coast out point with Gander. I discussed non-VATSIM procedures. Then I did another video yesterday, taking off out of Kennedy for Heathrow and going out and getting both a manual clearance, or we called them on VHF, with Gander, and also an automatic clearance through the VATSIM connection. So this is segment 2. I wanted to talk about contingencies over the North Atlantic. Pretty intimidating looking out there, isn't it? Oh, I got to go back in and get this into the virtual cockpit. Virtual cockpit. All right, so where are we? And what are we thinking right now? So we're coming up on 40 West. Do this. 40 West. What these circles is the ETOPS circles, right? We've discussed that in other events, but ETOPS circles are different than equal time points. So our alternates today are St. John's and Lodges and Shannon. Those are our en route alternates. Let's take a look at something here. Little handout I made for you guys. These are some contingencies we'll be reviewing. ETOPS, Extended Range Twin Engine Operations Performance Standards, a special part of the flight rules for one engine and operative flight conditions, developed when they had a two-engine aircraft a long time ago, 30 years ago, started flying over the North Atlantic. Right now, our position is we took off. We have not yet actually entered ETOPS. Even though we've been flying for 2 hours and 40 minutes. By the way, my clock is wrong. I'm in the process of trying to figure out how to update that. When you're on VATSIM, it causes problems because they deal in UTC, the actual UTC. Not a big deal when there's no VATSIM, but it's inaccurate. So Commander Sweeper gave me a link. I'm going to try to install that after this flight that supposedly updates the UTC on your clock. Otherwise, there's no way to do it on the 300 on the digital clock. You can click here and set the elapsed time in the cron down here. Take a look. But you can't adjust the clock in the 300. But anyway, let me go back down here, put this away. So the way we set it up, Stevensville is the easternmost part of our of the Newfoundland province. It's easternmost part before that you base your ETOPS off of. So put a 435 miles, because for the 777 at this our speed 84 Mach 320 indicated as we descend 430. It comes out to 435 miles circle. So we put that in there, and our next ETOPS point, and then en route alternate, is Lodges, 435 miles circle off of that. Let's go back in here. Let me go to a Navigraph. So here we are. This is, that's not even Track Victor. Bad example. Really what we need to go is to our flight plan. And let me do this, sim brief, flight briefing. So here we are. These are the different sectors. Our en route alternates today were Stevensville, St. John's, Stevensville, Lodges, which is down here, and then Shannon up here. Those were our 3 today. But when for ETOPS, that's different. Those were our alternates and en route alternates. Stevensville, Lodges, and Shannon. It just so happens Shannon is one of our ETOPS points, but you draw a 435 mile circle because that's our ETOPS circle. You can see right here right now we're not up at this point yet. We're not out of the circle. We're on Track Victor, by the way. We are still not in ETOPS. What does that mean? Why is that important? Because we have a different MEL to enter the ETOPS airspace, a little more restrictive. So we have to kind of know where we are. Our ETOPS, you can see the 435 mile circle off of St. John's, 435 mile circle so Stevensville, 45 mile circle off of Lodges, and 435 mile circle off of Shannon. This space in here between those circles where there's no circle is the ETOPS airspace. This part right here. So this would be, I believe that's Stevensville or St. John's. This would be Shannon, and down here would be Lodges. This space in between is the extended range twin engine operation performance standards that you have to meet. So you always have to know where you are. That's the ETOPS part. Then there's a different MEL for ETOPS as to what equipment you can have inoperative. But that's not our alternates. Our alternates are different. This is, right now we're in with St. John's, Stevensville, I'm sorry, and then this is Lodges. That's Shannon. I hard tuned them by just typing it in there. You can see our closest one right now is 1948. We'd go back. See how that looks on our circle to CYYT. That's kind of what we're seeing, right? We're not even out of the circle. This is where we enter ETOPS, and right about in between here is where we would probably end up in Lodges, going to Lodges. Right now, if we lost an engine, we do our procedures, which we'll talk about, and go back towards Newfoundland. But up in here, all of a sudden, Lodges would be our nearest alternate. We'd go there. As we get up further down the track, we'd hit the circle. We put the ETOPS circle in for Shannon, but our equal time point for between Lodges and Shannon will be up in here. Depending, that would determine which way we go, either to Lodges or Shannon. Right now, we turn back, go back towards Newfoundland, one of the airports. Right up in here, we go to Lodges, Azores, and somewhere up in here, our equal time point would be for Shannon. Back down here, and that jives with what we're seeing here. So right now, if we diverted, we would go 1949. So about that's not very far, right? A little less than an hour. It's 1856. A little less than an hour to go back towards Newfoundland, St. John's or Stevensville, and we get an hour later, we'd be going to Lodges. An hour later, and then somewhere in between Lodges and Shannon, the equal time point hits for Shannon. Let's go to our flight plan. View PDF. This is saying at 2 hours and 40 minutes, our equal time point is at 2. This is when we enter our ETOPS, 2:44 elapsed time, and this is where we would hit our equal time point between St. John's or Stevensville and Lodges, 2:53. Let's see where we are. 2:44, 2:53. We've been airborne for 2 hours and 47 minutes, which means we're approaching our ETOPS entry point. But 2:54, somewhere up in here, it's saying we hit our equal time point, 2:53, and elapsed time. Say that. And we would go to Lodges. So we're gonna wait to do our stuff to let it get down. We have a lot to talk about anyway. But that's the difference between ETOPS entry points, 435 miles for the 777, and for en route alternate, which are different. So in the ETOPS, we have to know when we're entering ETOPS because of the different MEL requirements for equipment that we have to enter that area. Right, in ETOPS, so it's a whole different MEL in our books, minimum equipment list. And then somewhere around 4:17 in the flight, so at 2:53, we go from using CYJT to LPLA, which is Lodges, Azores, and then we stay with Lodges until the 4:17 point be Shannon, 4 hours and 17. So somewhere in here, we'll probably do our engine failure. We are on track Victor. Let's go back over that. I covered a lot of that back on the previous video. We are on track Victor. We would have gotten our clearance from Gander, got a cell call check. We would be CPDLC, which is the automated stuff normally with the aircraft. But as we approached 50 West, our position report would have been Yeah, Gander American 100 on, I give it whatever the HF frequency, on 2576 position. Now this would all be done automatically normally, but I'll give you a manual. American 100 heavy, American 100 Gander, go ahead. American 100 heavy was at 48 north, 050 west, 1824, flight level 360, estimating 49 north, 040 west at 1924. Next is 50 north, 030 west, fuel on board 96.8. They would repeat that. Our next position report required at 40 west, which we would just be doing. At 30 west, we go from Gander to Shanwick. We would get our frequencies from Gander for Shanwick, or they would send them to us automatically. And at 30 west, we would tell Shanwick, we're not going to get there today, okay? 30 west with Shanwick, we'd say Shanwick, and let's go to here where you can actually see that. That's 30 west, equal time point. We're talking about that. That's the Shanwick Oceanic. See that? Pretty easy to see here. We were entering Shanwick space. We'd say Shanwick American 100 position. They come on. But if we were CPDLC, which is automated, we wouldn't have to say it. We'd say Shannon American 100 CPDLC for cell call check on 3476, whatever frequency Gander gave us. And they would give us a cell call. We say American 100 cell call check is normal. And that's all we do with them. Somewhere in here they get it as a freak, or they'd cell call us. And at 30 west, so we enter with Gander back here, do our position reports at Nixo, 50 west, and 40 west. And then Shanwick, we'd start talking to them on HF at 30 west with a position format. I'll leave a link with a position format. Let me show you something here. And some stuff we'll be talking about. So Gander, Shanwick, these are other ones we use. This is VC Bird. This is Reykjavik, Iceland, Oceanic. This is Greenland here. That's Iceland. Bodo's really far up north. That's up near Norway. We coast out over Copenhagen, like Denmark, and we do our stuff. That's tends to be when you're going up over the polar region. Santa Maria is when you're coming out of southern Europe. New York. Sometimes we do coast out with New York, Santa Maria. We'll talk about that later. Some tracks change every day. You have to, based on the winds. This is what we're talking about. I really want to beat this into each other. CYYT, 435-mile circle. Lodges, 435-mile circle. Shannon, 435-mile circle. This white area is the ETOPS airspace where our MEL changes. Now, where we go on the alternate, not to beat a dead horse, is, hope nobody who is offended by that. Where do you go if you lose an engine? Well, it depends. Equal time points are different than ETOPS entry. Equal time points somewhere out here where it's closer to go to lodges. As you can see, you'll be in ETOPS by that time. Equal time point closer to go to lodges than it is to go back towards Canada or go to Shannon. Let's take a look at that. See this ETP? Equal time point. And that means it's closer to go to lodges. Equal time point. You can actually click it. Equal time point, 2 hours and 53 minutes. Diversion time is 2:20 to get over to lodges. Pretty cool. That's right off the flight plan, and we have this kind of stuff available on our flight plan. So I want to talk to you about SLOP before we move on. SLOP is something that came into effect. We never used to do it. You basically have to stay on your course, right? But they do allow right of course only, either stay on course, which is a 0 offset, 1 mile or 2 miles. The reason is these aircraft are now 1,000-foot separation in the track system. It used to be 2,000 feet. Now it's 1,000, and they even have half tracks. Instead of being 60 miles apart, they're 30 miles apart. So we're right kind of on top of each other. And if let's say you're in a 767 doing Mach 80 across the pond, and a 747 doing Mach 89 flies overhead 1,000 feet above you, you can get rocked. So we tend to displace left or right we don't need ATC permission to do that. So the way we do that is we go to route, We do this here, route, and then we say right 1 or 2. Let's go right 2, and we execute it, and that's called SLOP. The only trick here, and you'll see that, let's go in here where you can see it. You see the aircraft starting to correct over. Only trick is you have to be out of it before you coast in with Shanwick. So that's a 2-mile offset. I tend to go 2 miles to the right, especially if our alternate is over there. And the reason is, we're going to go over it, but if you were to lose an engine, you cannot descend out of your altitude because of traffic until you're 5 miles offset. It used to be 10, but now it's 5. 5 miles offset. Well, if you're over there at 2, you're already 2 miles over. So you only got 3 miles to go. So I tend to go, if it's towards our alternate, our en route alternate, in this case, Lodges is south, right? I will displace 2 miles south just to get me closer to that 5 miles in the unlikely event that you lose an engine or have to shut an engine down off the North Atlantic. All right, that's called SLOPs. Off the top of my head, I don't remember what that stands for. Offset procedure. Standard lateral offset procedure, I believe it. And we do it. You'll see guys at 1-0. Now, certainly, if we looked up here and 10 miles ahead of us, somebody was 2 miles off, we'd offset 1 or 0. We'd adjust based on the traffic, which I should have that up. But generally, I go 2 miles right if that's towards our alternate. It usually is, because westbound, Keflavik's off to our right. Eastbound, Lodges is off to our right. The exception would be if Keflavik was off to our left, I might stay 0 as long as nobody else was out there. So I kind of like to get myself in the offset. Because if you lose an engine, you can offset left or right, but you usually do it towards our alternate. So I hope now you understand the difference between ETOPS entry, what ETOPS is, and en route alternates. Those are two different things. Go to the alternate page. I hard tune, normally it just keeps it in. You can see I've hard tuned the 3 that we're using. This is actually, CYJT is actually what our CYJT is actually our en route alternate going this way. You can see it's quite a bit of ways. The CYYT is what we base our ETOPS over, but the weather there is absolutely fine. We would have printed out our area weather. You put it in CYQX, which is Gander. It gives you all the airports that are available in Newfoundland, Nova Scotia. And then on the other side, we put in area weather for Shannon. It gives you all the European weather, including Lodges and including Keflavik is in there. So we fly with the area weather, so we brief each other on what suitable alternates are available should we lose an engine. Remember, these are just suggested, so things change. Not only does the weather change, it's the NOTAMs can change. The ILS can go out of service. So before you start diverting, we will send usually a free text message to our dispatch saying, hey, we're going to head towards Lodges. And they may come back and go, hey, sir, that's Lodges just closed. The runway is closed. So you definitely want to contact your dispatch before diverting, because they have access to information that you might not have access to. I'm going all over this stuff before we start doing any of our drama out here. One last look outside. North Atlantic. Okay, so I need to come back inside. Okay, I'll put this out a little bit. Hope you guys find this interesting. So here's 40 West. We have circle and tick procedures. What it is means we check bearings and distances. So when we got our Oceanic clearance, we made sure the clearance matched what was in our box, and the box matched what was on the track message, and it's what's on our flight plan. So our clearance matched the box matched the flight plan and the Oceanic clearance. And if it does, we put a circle next to each of these points on our plotting chart. As we approach a chart, we would say, hey, you want to do the next one for me? And say, oh, yeah. So the pilot flying goes down here, legs. Say, okay, from 49 north to 040 west to 050 north, 50 north, 030 west, with 092 and 394. They would check the bearing and distance on the flight plan and make sure it's reasonable. Usually the distance is right on, the course is off by a couple of degrees. And then you say following is 5120. So again, what you would read to them is almost like a position report. Okay, yeah, 49 north to 040 west to 50 north, 030 west, 092, 394. You'd say checks. You'd say following is 51 north, 020 west. And he checked that. We overdo it on that stuff. And as we pass that point, we check the fuel against our fuel printout that we would have. We check the time, getting our trend information. The report is usually sent automatically. If we wanted to send it manually, we come down to Prague, position report, and send it manually to our company. Although if you're CPDLC and it's signed on, it all goes out automatically to Gander or Shannon, the appropriate agency. Once we pass that point, wayport passage, we check LNAV, VNAV, we check our displacement, make sure we're not drifting, because if you had come out of heading into heading, you might be miles off course. You do not want to gross nav ever. So we're forever vigilant to check for LNAV in here. Also, we should have hard tuned. I don't think I did that. We were filed Mach A3 for the crossing. I should have hard tuned that. If you get a message now, so we were filed A3, so you hard tune that, hard tune the altitude. Or by the way, they cleared us at 35, not 36. So that would be in there. 35, not 36. Sorry guys, what I did is I set this up and I went and did a bunch of yard work, let it fly itself, so I'm kind of playing catch up here. I didn't want to have to take you on another whole thing. It's hard for me to block away 7 or 8 hours with my life, so I'm kind of doing it in segments, which means I got to restart it the next day, fly it up to the point that I left you off at. So today we're just going to do contingencies, head over to lodges. When I get back from, I got to go do a trip. When I get back from that, we'll do the coast-in procedures with Shanwick in London and fly on into Heathrow. Probably VATSIM, that portion. I'm going to go back to my little handy-dandy thing here. This is Gander Oceanic. This is where we got our clearance yesterday. If you didn't know how to get your clearance, it's well worth watching that video to find out. I had a lot of trouble really getting a good explanation how to do it. I almost just took off and I said, okay, forget it. I'm going to go up and I'm just going to fly it and figure it out when I get to Moncton and Gander. And that's what we did yesterday. It wasn't pretty, but we got it done. So how do you know which sector you're in? I showed you, we have a plotting chart. We're doing the circle and ticks that I just told you. And that'll tell us. But sometimes, let's say you were down here. It looks like we're in New York airspace here, Bob 2. But there are certain ones that are delegated by New York to Gander. So just because you're in one sector, you want to look on your JEP-JBD on your chart. And a lot of times it'll tell you who your reporting agency is. So it's not necessarily those lines that are on your plotting chart. Sometimes if it's close to the line, they'll delegate it to another facility. In this case, like if you were down here, Bob 2 has been delegated to Gander by New York. Sometimes it works the other way coming back. If you're going to stay with New York, when you go out on it's when we do that. Oh, by the way, trying to get you guys ready and myself ready for Cross the Pond. Cross the Pond is an event sponsored by VATSIM. Just to give you a little outside view. Events sponsored by VATSIM. They did the westbound leg on April 1st, and it takes 1,000 pilots apply for it and get a slot, a lottery. And then I think there's a couple hundred controllers and all sorts of different people working on it, and you fly from different agencies. The eastbound is going to be in October somewhere. I want to be ready for that. They'll have every control tower, ground staffed, Gander, Oceanic staff, Shanwick, all the European destinations. You'll be assigned a route. Like I'd like to fly New York to Kennedy, but they may not do that. They may put me on a Chicago to Frankfurt run, my aircraft. So you can start applying. I'll let you know as soon as I find out, and I'll put it on my Discord. But I really would like to get as many of us who subscribe here on there. It'd be fun to do that together. It's quite a professional event. I'll be honored if I'm able to get one of the slots. You can fly it without a slot, but they don't guarantee you coverage because they're so busy. So the other thing you have to be careful of is if you try for a call sign, let's say I'm American 100, somebody already has it, they may not let you fly with that. So I probably will use like a UPS 123 because no one will have that, and UPS doesn't even fly 777. So I'd probably do a UPS 123 777. So there's no conflict on that. But that's about Cross the Pond 2023 eastbound. It's in October, and this series is all about getting us ready to do that, and we're going to try to fly it together. We can do this without them. A few of us can do a long day, but it's a lot for us to take out an 8-hour day. You'd really have to block it off. It really takes about 10 all said and done, right? So maybe we all taxi out of Kennedy, launch the fleet, go on separate tracks, Tango Uniform Victor tracks, and fly on into Heathrow and try to land. I think that's something a lot of streamers do. I certainly have never done it. Okay, so let's see where we are. I think we're about to hit an ETP. Remember, it was at 253. We're at 304. So now our, let me get rid of this thing. Telemarketer call. Don't you want to just scream, stop calling me? I keep my phone with me because I really have to be available. So here we are slopping it, which means we're 2 miles right of course. We have passed the first ETP. First ETP, let's put it up here so you can see it maybe better. Equal time point. We have entered ETOPS because we crossed this 435-mile circle. And now we've actually, if it's true that at 253 our ETP changed to lodges, when I call up the alternates here, lodges should now be the closest. That's because CYJT was our actual alternate, not St. John's or Stevensville. So you can see that now lodges is a minute closer. That's why lodges has become. Certainly, if I check the weather and St. John's Newfoundland had fine weather, that is closer, even though that's not one of our inward alternates. Probably a reason for that, usually is. So it might have been bad weather there. I could look at the area weather, NOTAMs. For whatever reason, the dispatcher did not give us CYYT. They give CYJT, so there must be some issue with CYYT. We could look on the flight plan and figure it out, or on our area weather, or ask dispatch. But so let's right now that's pretty cool demonstration. You can see that lodges is closer. So if we lost an engine or depressurized, we plan on going to lodges, which is a great segue. And remember, this is 30 West is where we're going to contact Shanwick Oceanic for cell call check. We would get our frequencies from Gander, or if we had a CPDLC, a normal aircraft, it would pop up on a message. A lot of times what they'll say, especially Shanwick, they'll say, okay, American, your HF frequencies are 5550-8976. At 30 West, contact Gander, primary 11230, backup 8846. We'd repeat that back. Gander doesn't tend to do that with Shanwick. They don't give us the frequencies at 30 West, but Shanwick usually will send us their primary HF frequency, 2476, and we'll get our cell call check at 30 West. And it's just Shanwick American 100 CPDLC for cell call check on 2476. Ding dong. And down here, our cell call light would come on. We get cell call light on HF, and we click it off and say cell call checks normal for American 100. And the next time we would really need to contact them would be when we VHF coast in on the other side, which is Denham, and they would give us a VHF ring via CPDLC. Otherwise, we could get it on HF for our coast in with Shanwick. You'll notice when you're flying that there's a difference between Shanwick, the two over waters. They have Gander domestic, which is just like New York Center, Kansas City Center. They have Gander Oceanic. That's different than Gander domestic. That's the part that hosts the North Atlantic tracks. They're a non-radar facility. They're basically moving things on a board. Then you have Shanwick, which is the Oceanic up to Gander, and you have Shannon, which is an air traffic control like Kansas City, New York, London. So when you do the across the pond, you might hear Shanwick at 30 West, but when you coast in, it's going to be Shannon. Let's look at contingencies. So let's say we wanted to weather deviate. Easiest thing to do, weather deviate, is to contact. You're not going to fly through a thunderstorm, right? So it's to contact Gander or Shanwick and request it. You can do it through CPDLC, or you can call them up on. You can even call them on SATCOM. We can actually call satellite communications and get a real clear transmission. But somehow you got to get permission if you want to go more than 5 miles. Even if you want to go more than 2 miles, you've got to get permission. You basically have no rights to deviate. But naturally, you're not going to fly through a thunderstorm. So it may come that no one's answering you. You're going to deviate. You don't get permission. If you get permission, you don't have to do anything. You can deviate and not climb or descend. But if you deviate without clearance from Shanwick, essentially a weather emergency, a weather mayday, because you're not going to fly through a thunderstorm, and you go right of course. Let's say today we wanted to go right, which would be south, right? It would be descend 300 feet. You had to go more than 5 miles. So you're in there. You're trying to get clearance. No one's talking to you. You need to go 25 miles right of course. When you get outside of 5 miles of deviation, unauthorized deviation, you've got to climb or descend depending which way you're going. Now if you go to the right, to the south, anytime you go to the south, you descend. I think of South Dakota and South Carolina, North Dakota. I'm sorry, South Carolina, North Dakota. I always think of it because one of my daughters went to school down in South Carolina. So South Carolina, North Dakota. So if you deviate south of course, like right here, you've got to climb. So south, climb 300 feet. So if I went 25 miles, we're trying to get clearance, but basically we're a Mayday aircraft for weather. If I went past 5 miles, I have to climb. If I only do 4 miles, I'm still a Mayday aircraft because I'm outside of the 2 SLOP, but I've got to, I don't have to climb or descend. But once I go outside of 5 miles, I'm going to have to, and I'm south of course, I've got to climb 300 feet. North of course, North Dakota. North Dakota, South Carolina. North of course, north would be descend. North Dakota, you descend. So for more than 5 miles, you're going to descend 300 feet while you're doing your Mayday weather divert. Transmitting on guard that American 100 Heavy, deviating for weather without clearance. We're deviating 20 miles south of course on track Victor, and we're climbing 300 feet. So we're at 35.3, and we would transmit that. So that's South Carolina, North Dakota. North of course should descend. South Carolina, that's outside of 5 miles. That's a weather divert. That's if unable to obtain revised ATC clearance, advise ATC of intentions and alert nearby aircraft. Let's look at something. When we're flying along, we have guard on the left radio. That's common on the right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And in the box, after we're 30 minutes past our coast out point, we put in a squawk of 2,000. 30 minutes past our coast out point. So we fly around with guard 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is common freak. We have them both toggled up. Sorry guys, I guess I'll set it up now. And guard on the left. Guard on the left, 2, 3, 4, 5, and squawk 2,000. On the other side, Shannon will give you, Shannon, as you coast in, a new squawk. Usually you get it by CPDLC, or they'll give you on the radio. A lot of information, I know, but repetition is the key to learning, right? We'll keep going over it. That's a weather divert. So we've talked about SLOP. We've talked about weather diverts. When you have to climb outside of 5 miles, when you have to descend. You've got to descend if you're north of course, North Dakota. If you're south of course, more than 5 miles, you've got to climb. Always, it's a weather emergency because you need permission to deviate for weather on those corridors. Oceanic contingencies. What to do when you can't comply with the oceanic clearance, route, speed, flight level due to either emergency medical divert, engine failure, depressurization, icing, and turbulence. Well, biggest deal is your 1,000-foot separation, right? You're flying along, guys, and there could be an aircraft right below you. Right below you, 1,000 feet. You would probably know on traffic. So you get an explosive depressurization. You start diving down. It's a big sky theory, I know, but there's a chance of hitting them. So if you want to deviate, there's a North Atlantic procedure to deviate. You become a Mayday aircraft, but you've got to stay at your altitude until you get 5 miles left or right of course, your choice. And then once you're 5 miles, you can do a descent at VMO, MMO. You can do it at 0.84, 320 in the 777, right down below the tracks, which go down to 29, so down to 28.5. Once you get down to 28.5, you can turn. You'd still be an emergency descent for depressurization, but you'd be in a drift down and an engine out, which is what we're going to do today. So right now, if we had a depressurization, we would go oxygen mask on, goggles on, because stuff's flying around, crew communications established on interphone. We would start a right-hand or left-hand turn. We put in a right 5. On the route, a right 5. And keep it an LNAV, the aircraft would start going. We don't start our emergency descent. Once we get over it, we could start emergency descent, idle speed brakes, VMO. We go 0.84 to 320 and start getting down below us. VMO, MMO. Seatbelt sign on, Mayday on both frequencies, on common and on guard, telling everyone what you're doing. Track Victor, 5 miles north of course, depressurizing. They'd know because you're masked, you'd be all garbled. And so you want to get the seatbelt sign on. I look at it like this. Mask on, goggles on, crew communication established, and I come up here and I put in 10,000 feet and idle, which once I'm 5 mile right offset 5. I'm going over this because we're not going to do the depressurization. Once I get 5, idle speed brakes and descend with flight level change down to 10, doing 0.84 transition to, I use about 320. You can go faster if you wanted. Get down below 10,000, get down to 10,000 feet. Out here, if you haven't watched my Himalayan presentation on depressurization, there's a lot of problems, a lot of places in the world about high terrain on an explosive depressurization. This is not one of them. It's 0, right? Because you're over the ocean, so you can go right down to 10,000 people. Then you also come up here, you make sure the masks are on for the people. You hold that for 1 second, make a PA, and change the squawk. There's a whole checklist for emergency depressurization. And call Mayday on both frequencies, 2345 and 215, and then contact Gander, or in this case Gander because we're not at 30 West, and tell them what you're doing. And somewhere down there you'd start your divert. In today's case, Lodges is our closest alternate. We'd start going to the Azores. That's for explosive depressurization. What about a medical emergency? What about a medical contingency, which is by far our most common diversion reason? It's not a loss of an engine. It isn't depressurization. It's a medical emergency. You think of it, you put, for Delhi, for example, 17-hour flight, 300 people with a bunch of elderly people on board, all dehydrated they were at the airport 3 hours early, nothing to eat or drink. Medical emergency is our most common problem. We page physicians, get them working, contact our company. They have an on-call doctor. We come together whether we should be diverting or continuing. We agree with the doctor in the back, the doctor on the ground, and our own personal opinion as pilots. And there's certain situations like uncontrolled bleeding, loss of consciousness, if the defibrillator was used, that we have to divert. Others we have to kind of pool our collective wisdom to decide. But a medical emergency is the most common. Well, medical emergency, you don't have to do that 5 miles offset left or right, Mayday, Mayday. No, you can call up Gander. You're not in a hurry, right? You just call up Gander and you get permission to deviate, and they may disconnect you. They say, Roger, and now when we come off the track, they may give us a new clearance. We would still get down below the tracks, do the same procedures then, but we're not going to do that deviation until we get permission. We'll get off 5 miles, get down below the tracks, and start our divert over to lodges. So medical emergency, stay on the track, get clearance. Once you get clearance, you can do the 5-mile offset down below the tracks and head towards your alternate with clearance. So that's depressurization in medical emergency. That's weather deviations, and that's SLOP, which leaves us with engine failure. Before we do it, let's go over it because it gets a little busy. Let's see this. It says medical emergency, divert, engine failure, depressurization, icing, turbulence. Okay, oceanic contingencies. Establishing a 5-mile offset. So the number one is try to get revised ATC clearance. If no ATC clearance, turn at least 30 degrees to get to that 5-mile offset. We'll just go LNAV. It'll do it. You're going to get there real quick to 5 miles. Establish 5 miles offset from track. When you do, step 4, descend below flight level 290, 28.5. Now, if you engine out, your engine out altitude is much lower than 28.5. And then fly at 500 vertical offset from the normal levels, so 28.5, 27.5, 26.5, and then proceed until your new ATC clearance is received. So we're going to go 5 miles offset for an engine failure. Once we get offset, we're going to descend down below the tracks. That's at VMO, MMO. Once we get down below that, we're going to drift down and get heading towards our alternate of lodges. So we're going to take a look at that. Got a little cheat sheet here that somebody made up for me. Somebody made up. It's now become part of our official pubs, but it's been around for a long time. So a technique on the 777, I have a laminated copy of this that I leave in the cockpit. It's about this big when I go. I put in just with a erasable marker our alternates and also the estimated time en route for our ETPs and this procedure because we don't do it very often. So on the CDU, we're going to press route offset 5 right or left, depending. In our case today, we'll go to the right because lodges is that way. Set MCP to 20 and do not push. Well, why do we set 20? Because that's in the ballpark at the heaviest weights of the engine out altitude. The truth is, our engine out altitude will be a little higher today. But the heaviest weights, it's down around 18.5. So it's a good starting point. On CDU, press VNAV and select engine out and execute. Check VNAV speed and FMA. We'll do that. Exterior lights on, seatbelt lights on, signs on so people can see her. We're usually flying at night. When able, advise ATC via CPDLC, SATCOM, cell call, 21.5, 23.45, a lot of radio calls. Most important part is someone's flying the airplane. That person is doing the 5-mile offset at with the VNAV on engine out speed, and then you'll drift down when you get 5 miles off, descend down below the tracks, and get it into a drift down position and start heading on over to our alternate of lodges. The other guy's doing all this other stuff. Remember, we usually have an extra couple of pilots, get them up out of the bunk or the seat, crew rest seat, have them up here doing some of this stuff for you. Once established on that 5-mile offset, CDU press VNAV and select company speed and execute. That's 320 at 0.84. Doing a mayday, reset the MCP to descend to a flight level below max altitude, that's engine out, which we'll look at, that differs from those normally used by 500 feet. Okay. Consider flight level change and set speed to expedite getting below flight level 290. Pilot in command may proceed when the clearance is received or descent below 29, you're below the tracks, or PIC decision to ensure aircraft safety. There's a group of guys out there who fly a lot of military. I think we should get down below 21 before we turn because the military operates in that airspace right below the tracks a lot of times in their C-17s or C-5s or C-130s. They're right in there. They say get down below that. Big sky theory, guys. I get down below 29 at 28.5. I'm starting my turn to my alternate. I think that's a little excessive, to be honest with you. That's what we're going to do. Let's do it. Let's do it. Okay, so we're flying along, fat, dumb, and happy, right? And let's take a look right now, just so we know. Right now, lodges, CYYT, Stevensville, for whatever reason we can't go there. You can see our actual ETP equal time point was for I think this is St. John's. That's Stevensville. So right now, Lodges is our closest alternate. For whatever reason, this one wasn't used by dispatch. We'll be able to hit divert now to go there too when the time comes. But right now, we're not doing any of that. All right, we're going to go along. Let's have some fun here. All right, let's do this. Here we go. The pyrotechnic person and myself, the arsonist, yeah, aircraft options, aircraft failures. I'm lighting a fire. Next page. Engine fire, fire, programs. Let's go to fire. Let's go for the whole enchilada. Active. You ready? Let's do this. Execute. Oh, the fire. Okay, I would say my aircraft. Let's say Roger, your aircraft. And he's going to start running the fire checklist. I'm going to show you how to fly it first. Should be able to push this to silence the horn. Doesn't always work. This time it worked. So my thing is I'm going to go right 5, right 5, right 5. Aircraft is going to start deviating to the right 5 miles. You can see it going over there. It's turning. And he's going to go like this. He's going to come up. It's the left engine. Left fire fuel hand fire switched off. He's going to bring that throttle. The pilot flying brings that throttle to idle. We're confirming the step. Left fire switch, affected engine pull, cut off. Cut off. Left fire handle, affected engine pull. This will be off the quick reaction checklist, guys. Pull. Engine fire stays shown. It does. He would be reading this off the checklist, guys. No more memory items. And after 30 seconds, so we're going to get our little clock started. Prone. 30 seconds if the fire message stays shown, but it went out. That's good. All right, so when we get 5 miles offset, let's go in here so you can see it. So he's got that checklist, and we're still deviating. And right now, what are we doing? We're saying on this frequency here, I do it on guard to start. Mayday, mayday, mayday. American 100, track Victor, deviating 5 miles south of course with an engine fire. And I go to VNAV, engine out, execute, and we're supposed to put in flight level 200. Don't push it, right? When we get 5 miles off, you see how it's drifting, guys? I have continuous power supposed to be getting set, but it's not. Why is that pulling back? It's actually slowing down. Normally a continuous power would be set because I was trying to maintain our engine out speed. Still 0.6 miles. It says continue using level change. We're going to let it do that. All right, we are at 5 miles. I'm going to go flight level change, and I'm going to set in a Mach of 0.84. And mayday, mayday, mayday. American 100, track Victor. We're 5 miles offset, descending down below the tracks, leaving 350 for 28.5. Now what we're descending at, guys, is 0.84 to 320. Get down below the tracks. He is executing this checklist here. Take a look over here. Checklist. Engine shutdown checklist. He goes in and does the expanded version, which is right here. Fire illuminant stays shown? No, it does not. Let me go this for you so you can see it. That's not going to let me do that. No. Next page. APU on. APU lever switch is on. Get ourselves an extra generator, right? Flap override switch to override. Transponder TA only. TA only. Plan to land air suitable alternate. And landing flaps require yes. And checklist is complete. And that's all he'd do now. I want him here flying the airplane with me. Now we're down below 29. When we get down below 29 to 28.5, right, I'm going to start a drift down. The way we're going to do that is bring this back up to VNAV like that. Continuous power will be set on the engine. I would double check it, but it says continuous, right? If you want to double check it, you go here, thrust limit, continuous power is set. It's slowing our descent. When it gets down to the engine out, it will start a descent. So we're down below tracks 28.5, and now we can actually start our turn. So you go to alternates, divert now, LPA, execute, and it's going towards lodges. So what are we doing? We're transmitting on guard. We're transmitting on common frequency. People will offer to help. If sometimes you're going to tell them not to. We go over to SATCOM. We send CPDLC messages to Gander. We're not at Shamwick yet. We could SATCOM them, right? And talk to them live and in living color. That's an old expression. That's how old I am. Get the heading slug bug slewed up. What altitude are we going to? Now's the time to check it. So you go to VNAV. Engine out altitude. Engine out descent is 27. That's pretty good. So 27, that's really high. I like it. So why not? And remember, they wanted us to go to 500 feet off that. So let's go to 26.5. So we'll level at 26.5. Now somewhere in here, Gander says, Roger, you're cleared to descent. What altitude do you want, sir? And we'd like 26. Roger, you're cleared to 26. Well, what's that? You don't need to do 500. That's only until you, that's only, I'm going to put in 26 even. That's only until you get clearance. So it should be able to maintain 27. But we're going to go down to 26. And that's our engine out speed. So it's drifting down at continuous power to 27. About to 26. And we're below our engine out max speed. We've gotten permission from Gander. The engine is secured. We've made Mayday calls. We've got our clearance direct to lodges, which is 710 miles away. And we've made, at this point, no hurry. Let's take a look outside. Ah, there she is. Doesn't look any different, does she? At this point, we have done our oceanic clearance. So let's go back over. Oceanic deviation, weather deviation. Next thing we do, call back, talk to the flight attendant and say, yeah, hey, we had a engine fire on the left side and we're starting to descend into lodges. We're not landing for another, let's see, 21:32, an hour, 50 minutes. Plenty of time. I'll make a PA to the people. We're not, it's just precautionary landing. No need to do anything special back there. And they would say, well, thank you very much, Captain Marvel. You know, for whatever reason, this should be up at 90. This is a drift down. Should be up at 97.4. That's good. It's continuous. Now it might level at 27 because that's the single engine at this power setting. Yeah, it's coming down. It wants to go down to 26. Once we get to 26, we'll be able to accelerate. This is just drifting on down slowly. So let's take a look at how we did. On CDU, press root offset, left, right. We went right 5. Execute. Set MCP to 20. Do not push. We did that. On CDU, press VNAV. Select engine out and execute. We did that. On VNAV speed and FMA. Yep. Exterior lights on. We didn't turn on the exterior lights. Remember, it's nighttime. It's definitely a big one. I should have done that. A lot of this is techniques, guys, but exterior lights are on. Made a PA. Seatbelt sign, do you really need it on? the aircraft's flying just fine. I'm not going to alarm the people until I absolutely have to, guys. Seatbelt sign on, exterior lights on. Advised, we did all that stuff. Press VNAV, company speed, execute. I didn't do that because I didn't flight level change. It says consider using flight level change. I'm not a big fan of the company speed and execute. What that does, it goes down at 0.84 320 in VNAV. I like more control using the flight level change at that point. Reset the MCP to descend to a flight level below your max. It's 27, so 26.5. But once we got clearance, we don't have to do that anymore. So we got our clearance. Consider using flight level change. That's what I elected to do. PIC may proceed as wherever I want to when clearance is received or descent below 29. So we started turning towards lodges before we got our clearance. When we got down below 29, 28.5, we went from idles. We went from flight level change to continuous drift down, and we're heading on over to lodges. Those are all the different contingencies that we discussed when we were on the North Atlantic. Interesting thing is, see how it leveled? It's pretty cool. It leveled at 27 because that's the engine out. You know what? Let's just go at 27. We'll assume again it goes to us. That's pretty cool. And the continuous power was able to hold 27. So let's do this. Let's do that. Let's check in here. Make sure 27's in there. It's going to 247. There's no need to do that anymore. So what I'm going to do is kind of bump this up as far as possible. We know that's our drift down. Let's see if we can get it to go for us. See how fast we can get going down here. Because really we should be doing 320 if we can. I'll put 320 in the window. And we'll see if at continuous power we can accelerate and get some airspeed. Cut down on our commute. Let's put in 300 here for 320 on the VNAV page also now that we've leveled. And we'll see how it does. Knocks a lot of time off. But guys, we're not going to do the lodges. I've made a lot of long videos lately. So this will be a divert with a lodges. There's lots of airport. I'll show you what it is. We got a long way to go to that. So lodges. Here it is. 11,000 foot runway. Military, we used to use it a lot. I flew tankers for a couple of years, like late 80s. But it's plenty of runway. The NOTAMs are good. We also, by the way, have contacted dispatch because you don't want to be diverting somewhere and then find out later that, hey, they had an accident on the runway is closed. So you don't want to divert completely. You can start it until you get dispatched. So we told the people, we told Gander, we got permission, we got clearance, we told the company, he checks all the NOTAMs, he calls all the fields, he calls ahead, he or she, and lets them know we're coming, and off we go to land at lodges in about an hour and a half, which I'm not going to take you on that. You probably would enjoy it. I would enjoy it, but we're not going to do it. And there's lots of approaches, as you'll see here, there's ILSs to every runway. But it is a single runway operation. So you definitely want to know what the heck's going on before you get there. Those lodges, I guess they're a principality of the country of Portugal. It's supposed to be pretty beautiful, actually. But we're not going to find out because we're not going to go there. All right, guys. That is it. Those are the contingency operations in the North Atlantic. We covered SLOP, lateral offset procedures. We covered weather deviations with clearance, without clearance, inside of 5 miles, outside of 5 miles, whether you climb or descend. Remember, South Carolina, so south you climb, North Dakota, north you descend. That's without clearance. If you have clearance, you don't have to do that. We covered depressurization, where you got to get the offset, then descend below the track and start your turn. Same procedures as this after that. Go right down to 10 because you're over the ocean. Covered medical, the most common medical emergencies. Stay on course. Don't do anything. Get clearance. And then you'll do your offset, descend below the track, and turn. But they don't want you doing clearance for a deviation and doing anything dramatic with a medical emergency. And the last one is a little more complicated. The drift down, the engine out, where you offset 5 miles, descend flight level change at company speed, or I do 0.84, transition to 320, get down below the tracks, which is 28.5, start your turn, getting clearance. Once you get clearance, you can go to any altitude at your engine out or below. And I start a drift down. Once I get down below the tracks, I go from flight level change to VNAV, which gives me a drift down and heads on over. And we go one engine on operative on over to lodges. No big deal. You got a lot of time. So anyway, that's it. That's Father Time's presentation on contingency operations in the North Atlantic. Appreciate you guys. If you wouldn't mind subscribing, it helps us a lot. We're a small but real loyal, fiercely loyal group. We're building, having a good time. We got a little Discord thing going on too. If you want to join the Discord, subscribe. My guys know there's 540 of us or so as of today, which is what, May 8th, no, May 9th, 2023. We're growing. We're having a blast. I retire. If you don't know me, I retire after 36 years with them. I can say that now. There's a lot of reason why, guys, by the way, a lot of airline pilots on here. Because really, should I be doing this? Yeah, they got a month and a half, 2 months to go, 3 months to go before I retire. I'm doing it. But I wouldn't do it if I had a year to go, because too much exposure, too much proprietary rights, and it's too hard to hide who I am. So you guys would always figure it out. You can get in trouble. As a matter of fact, for those of you following me, Freaky D 777, Boeing engineer, we're not going to do those videos, guys. He's way too young to become the YouTube guy just for me. He's got a pretty lucrative career going over there, so everything we did would have had to be vet through corporate, which is very logical. It takes 30 days, so why bother? He's going to show up, he's going to give his advice, he's going to give his techniques. He's actually a very experienced sim pilot too, so he's helping me immensely. Matter of fact, I had to do a couple of things when I hang up with you guys that he just mentioned to me, Freaky D mentioned, but unfortunately we can't do those videos. A little disappointed, but he will be. He's one of our primary guys. He will be all over our screen. So subscribe if you would. I can't thank you enough for taking good care of me. All you guys, you're throwing me on your back, brand new to this sim game, and you're helping me so much. I hope I'm taking care of you too. I'm trying to do some of the things that you want to do. Hey, my next video might be after my trip. Commander Sweeper, my guy, asked me to do this Norway trip. It's basically a 120,000 pound cargo wine run, 280 miles or so in Norway, a trip he does, and he wanted me to fly it and balance out do some PMDG magic. I think he's testing me. It's going to be fun. I'm going to do it. I probably won't get to it today, tomorrow, but I will do it when I get back from my trip. Okay, so that's it. I didn't turn my light on, did I? Here, hold on. Hold on. It's always something with Father Time. Right? My wife hates it. She thinks it's tacky. Let's see. I want to see one thing before we go. Yeah, see how it's slowly accelerating? So we're at 27 with continuous power set. Right down here. Continuous power set. And it's slowly accelerating at the 320, which is company speed. Down here, 320. That's what they want us to divert up. That's what our ETOPS is based off of. Drift down, but once we get down, accelerating to 320 or 0.84 Mach, but we can't do that, so it's going to be, it will be too low. So 320 to make sure our ETOPS is in compliance. So you learned all about ETOPS too. You learned about equal time points and all the contingencies. Hope you enjoyed it. Let's get ready to fly across the pond in October eastbound. We'll do it together as a community. Oh, hey, here's a good one, guys. Look at this, a fuel imbalance. So you got to keep an eye on that, right? So let's open the cross feed. We haven't ever covered that. So our left engine is shut down. You can open up just one cross feed. And which one is high? The left engine is high. So let's turn off the right. So always do something good before you do something bad, right? So make sure that the left ones are on, the right ones come off. And we'll balance these out manually. So the rights are off. That's the low one. So right now we're burning left fuel. And then when we turn it back on for cross feed, with the same philosophy. I'm going to show you the fuel page, guys. We would do something good before it did something bad. So when this gets in balance, we will turn on the right, which is something good, turning on a fuel pump right, before if we will turn off the left. So that's basic philosophy. One cross feed is good enough. You can see how everything is burning. Yeah, see how it's all feeding through the cross feeds to the right engine. Actually, left engine shut down. So we're burning the right engine off the left. Once that gets in balance, we'll keep playing with it all the way to lodges. You know what? That turned out pretty good. I'm pretty pleased with that. Suggestions, anything you got, please do. Other than that, that's me back there, right? Father Time. Thanks, guys. Is out.